maybe one of the weaker divisions in all of baseball. The Chicago White Sox are going to run away with this division. I had them at 96 and 66. And they went out and they made some moves this year. They re-signed Leori Garcia, utility player, and they did lose some bullpen guys, but they quickly added to that already scary bullpen with Craig Kimbrell, Garrett Crochet, and Michael Kopech and Liam Hendricks. They went out and signed Joe Kelly, and they brought in Kendall Graveman, who was arguably one of the better relief pitchers in all of baseball. They also signed another utility man in Josh Harrison. Like I said, they stacked up an already stacked bullpen, and they locked down depth at all positions because Harrison and Garcia, they can play all over the diamond in the infield and in the outfield. They were 93 and 69 last season, and they won the American League Central. They lost in the division series to the Houston Astros, but this team is going to win the division. There is no way around it. I really don't care how good the Twins got. It's not going to be good enough to beat the White Sox. They're just a much more complete team than anybody else in this division. Speaking of the Twins, I do have them improving much better than last year. I have them at second place at 83 and 79. Now, the big move, obviously, we just talked about it. That was Carlos Correa. They brought him in 3 years, $103 million. They also acquired pitcher Sonny Gray from the Cincinnati Reds. They signed starting pitcher Dylan Bundy, and they also acquired catcher Gary Sanchez and third baseman Gio Urshela in the Donaldson, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa trade with the Yankees. Now, they did upgrade their offense and their defense tremendously on both sides of the ball, and they're still lacking in pitching though. Sonny Gray is not going to be the end-all be-all. He is not going to get you to the World Series by himself, or even to 90 wins by himself. It was a good pickup, but I didn't like how they gave up one of their best pitching prospects for him, especially because he's older and he's starting to decline just a little bit. But we'll just see what happens with him. They look to be going for it after last year. They do have some guys that may be ready to come up, like Royce Lewis. We'll just have to wait and see. Maybe they'll have a healthy Byron Buxton. There's just a lot of question marks with the Twins. That's why I'm not sold on them actually being as good as their additions say that they will be. And they were 73 and 89 last year. They missed the playoffs, and they were last in this division. Seriously underwhelming season. I had them in second place last year. They've completely missed that mark, but they'll definitely improve this year. And in third place, I have the Detroit Tigers getting closer to 500, 80 and 82. This is a team that showed very, very good improvements in the second half of 2021. They signed Eduardo Rodriguez to a 5-year, $77 million contract. They signed relief pitcher Andrew Chafin to a 2-year, $13 million deal. And they also bolstered that rotation once again by signing Michael Pineda to a 1-year deal. They acquired catcher Tucker Barnhart from the Cincinnati Reds. And the biggest one, they got their guy at shortstop for the next 6 years. That's Javi Baez. He got the same exact contract as Trevor Story, 6 years, $140 million. Now, their rebuild is slowly ending. They have guys that are almost ready to come up in Spencer Torkelson and Riley Green. Those guys, they look to hopefully make a big impact for the Tigers in some way in maybe next year, but definitely in 2023 or 2024. These guys are really close to getting up there and being maybe names that we hear throughout every season for some award, statistical category based on the trajectories and the level that they have played in the minor leagues. And as I said before, they got their guy in Javi Baez. He's going to be a leader of this team. They went out and they spent top dollar for him. Lock down that shortstop position. Javi is still at a very good age. He's in his prime now. I thought that was a good contract for them. I thought they were going to be in on Correa because of the AJ Hinch connection, but nevertheless, they spent less and still got a good shortstop defensively and at times definitely offensively. Last season, they were 77 and 85. I think they make a 3-game jump there. And then who knows, for the next few years, they could continue to improve. But for now, I have them at 80 and 82 in third place at the American League Central. Now, in fourth place, I only have this team above the last place team that I have because they were able to keep guys on their remaining roster who were very good. And that is the Cleveland Guardians. Now, this team did absolutely nothing to improve anything this offseason. The only acquisition that they made is that they signed catcher Luke Maile. and they lost a former Gold Glover in Roberto Perez at that position, and his replacement is Luke Maile. That is just the bare minimum to improve. But like I said, they still have a lot of guys coming back that were a reason why they made the playoffs in 2020 and why they finished 80 and 82 in 2021. But I just see them trending downward. They're a team like the Oakland Athletics that just doesn't really spend on a lot of players, especially players that they groom, hence Francisco Lindor. We'll see where they go with Jose Ramirez. He's still their guy over there, and he's going to have a tremendous season. I have the Guardians at 78 and 84. And rounding out the American League Central for myself, I have the Kansas City Royals finishing in last place at 75 and 87. This is another team that they can be on the come up. They do have a pretty young roster and guys that will probably make an impact down the line, just not this upcoming season. They made 2 moves all offseason, and that was they signed Zach Greinke. They brought him home to where it all began. They signed him to a 1-year, $13 million deal, and then they traded for relief pitcher Amir Garrett. They traded away Mike Minor for Amir Garrett. Now, those moves to me, I don't know. I think it just increases depth. I don't really see how they are going to compete in this division. I don't see how anybody is, but they were 74 and 88 and obviously missed the playoffs last year, but I don't really see them making a huge jump. I don't know how much Zach Greinke is really going to impact this team as they are now, especially because he is really the only notable acquisition. No knock on Amir Garrett. He just doesn't pitch every 5th day, and there's a good possibility that he will win every 5th day like Zach Greinke. But even with Greinke, his age is showing. He's starting to falter a little bit, and it's almost time that we say goodbye to one of our generation's better pitchers, but he's going to stick it out for at least another season. But yes, the Royals will round out my American League Central predictions. Now, Andrew, let me hear your thoughts and what you have for the Central.
So the first place team, obviously everybody knows it. I don't think anybody, I think if you take 100 people and tell them to break the AL Central, probably 97 or 98 of them are going to pick the Chicago White Sox to win it. I have them at 98 wins last year, up from 93. Last year, I actually predicted them for over 100 wins and making the World Series, lose the Dodgers, but injuries obviously played a factor into that. The rotation was better than we thought, but the lineup was hurt a lot of the year from some pretty weak lineups. This rotation, Giolito, Lance Lynn, Dylan Cease, Michael Kopech, Keuchel, and possibly Crochet if they give him a chance to start. This is the top 5 rotation in baseball. They did lose Carlos Rodon, but Cease is completely fine as a number 3. Maybe even that could even move up to the number 2 or the 1 later in the year. We'll have to hear more in this episode about that. The runs, they averaged 7th in runs per game last year, despite having a lot of injury troubles. Robert, Eloy, Abreu, Yon Moncada, Yasmani Grandal missed 2 months. He's one of the best hitters in the league. And their offense still went. Guys like Jake Lamb, Gavin Sheets, Yerman Mercedes picked up, were huge contributors. But the biggest strength of this team is the bullpen. Hendricks, Kimbrel, Graveman, Bummer. That's 4 of the top relievers in baseball, all in one bullpen. I thought they were going to trade Kimbrel, dump his contract off because they're already paying Graveman and Hendricks a lot of money, but they didn't. So, and also they added Joe Kelly along with they have Garrett Crochet and Jose Ruiz. So this is the best bullpen in baseball. Maybe second best behind the Rays, but bullpen is really pitching overall. This team is going to win. They're going to breeze through this division. The only thing that could stop them is injuries. Second place, I have a very different prediction than you. You had this team in 4th place. I have the Cleveland Guardians in 2nd with 84 wins. They won 80 games, and they pretty much went the whole year. Not the whole year, but a good 2.5 months without their ace, Shane Bieber, who was, in my opinion, the most valuable player in the 2020 season. So I think you get Shane Bieber back, you get Zach Plesac along to go with Aaron Savale, Chris McKenzie in that rotation. That's one of the better rotations in the AL. The lineup is not great. Bullpen is pretty strong. Emmanuel Clase, Brian Shaw, Even Anthony Gose, former outfielder, who now throws 100. That's a pretty strong bullpen. So I have them at 84, which is 8 higher than what their over-under is set at 76.5 wins. And then third place, I have the Twins. Last year, huge disappointment, as we talked about. I had them at over 100 wins. They were nowhere close to that. They did pick it up a little bit towards the end of the year, but the start just killed them. It's a horrible first 2 months. And now the rotation, just all they had, like you said, Sonny Gray is not going to get you 2 World Series, and it's a very weak rotation. Sonny Gray, Randy Dobnak, Bailey Ober. They need another piece. They are looking at maybe getting Frankie Montas, Sean Manaea. Even with that, I don't see them coming close to the playoffs. Unless their lineup decides to hit again, because they do have Carlos Correa, they have Gio Urshela, Gary Sanchez. So if their lineup wants to hit like they did in 2019 or 2020, then maybe, but I don't see this team making the playoffs because of their rotation, and bullpen is pretty weak too. Fourth place, I have the Tigers at 77 wins, same as last year. They're definitely building something here, the Tigers. They were over 100. People expected them to lose over 100 games last year, and they were one of the biggest surprises. They didn't start off pretty bad. They actually could have had a chance of competing with the Yankees and the Mariners and the Red Sox for that second wild card team, I think. But right now, you're really just looking towards the future. You got Javi Baez. I think if they want an outside shot to make the playoffs, the rotation is going to have to be what sets them above. Right now, they got Eduardo Rodriguez, which I think a lot of people forgot about that signing because it happened a long time ago. And he's an ace. He had a very bad year last year, but his peripherals were very good. So I think he's going to have around a sub 3.5 ERA this year. Casey Mize and Tariq Skubal, I think these are the 2 keys for this team. These guys were 2 top prospects. Mize had a pretty good year last year. Skubal not so much. But if these guys can perform to their potential, I think that's what's going to put them as a potential playoff team. Although I have them in 4th place, so I don't believe it. But they're a dark horse team, in my opinion. And then 5th, the Royals. I have them at 68 wins last year. A lot worse than last year where they had 74. But what I'm most excited about to watching this team is Bobby Witt Jr. He's the number 1 prospect in the league. Upper 900 OPS, worth 30 homers in majors last year, 60 power tool. If I'm being honest, they're probably one of the least exciting teams in the league. But I'm going to be watching this team because of Bobby Witt Jr. And that's my Central.
I like that Central, Andrew. I think a lot of the teams that range from 2 to 5, you could really go any way with any of them, but nobody is dethroning the Chicago White Sox, and that's a fact. Nobody is going to overtake this team in that division unless someone has a miraculous season. It's going to take a whole lot of praying for someone to take down the Chicago White Sox.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the White Sox, some people like to call them frauds because, they haven't really faced a real competitor ever since they've been a pretty good team. But, they haven't gone that far in the playoffs, as we've seen. So possibly, I don't think so. I think the White Sox, it's just how it is. They're in a week.
I think they're legit. I think the White Sox are legit. Now they have that postseason experience now after the last 2 seasons. So we'll see where this team goes. Hopefully it's in the step in the right direction. But now, Andrew, break down your American League West for us. Who do you have coming out of there? And what are other things that need to be talked about that happen in the West?
So in the West, there's 2 teams to choose from. Well, there is 5, but there's really 2 teams to choose from for winning it. And I have, once again, the Houston Astros, 94 wins. They had 95 last. I have them at 94